Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. Now, there's something in the taste and the texture of tea that lends itself in beautiful harmony with all types of food. But there's very special harmony between tea and cheese. Why? Texture, flavors, incredible mouthfeel, and amazing synergy. It's truly beautiful because not only does the tea enhance the flavors and the experience of cheese, but it gives it a different dimension altogether. And that's why we are calling today's session Epic. Now, we have a very special guest this time. If you haven't met Betty Koster in one of our sessions, genuinely, and if you also like cheese, you have not lived. So today, we're bringing you our very special guest. Now, Betty is special for several reasons. She's a person with extraordinary passion for cheese. And it's fantastic to see someone with such an artisanal commitment to what they do. And you know what they say about people who love what they do. You are assured that whenever Betty talks cheese, it's also with a lot of knowledge. And when you combine knowledge with love, you know what happens next. It's an amazing experience. Now, before we bring Betty on, I have a question for you. We have a poll. Have you ever tried pairing tea with cheese? Simple one, this one to start with. Yes or no? Tell us. So, most have, but many haven't. Carrie, let's publish the results. So, wonderful, thank you. Now with that, I want to introduce my very good friend and our learned faculty member, the wonderful Betty Koster, all the way from Amsterdam. Betty, welcome, and thank you for joining us.
Hi, Dilhan. Thank you for having me. Totally different from being in Sri Lanka on the School of Tea. I'm doing it at home, and still very pleased to have all the people learn about tea and cheese together. Tea and cheese, it seems it's all as the way to Rome, as we have a saying in the Netherlands, because the Swiss always drank tea with their cheese fondue, which was only for the purpose that it stimulated the digestion and the fondue wouldn't be that heavy on your stomach. But I guess they never paired a real combination. Pairing tea and cheese is very fashionable right now, very hot. You see many restaurants having a tea menu along with the cheese menu. And since about 13 years, I've been doing this in the Netherlands, training people that this is one of the best things to combine. Why would you say? Well, tea has different purposes. For one, it cleans the mouth. So you have a sip of warm tea, it cleans the palate, it warms the palate. And whatever you eat after cleaning your palate will just be exploding its flavors because it's in a clean room. So that's one of the things. Because it's warm, it enhances the flavors of that what you put in your mouth, whether it's cheese or chocolate or anything else. More flavors will come out because you have a warm mouth. And then when you sip the tea again afterwards, then the pairing starts and you have all those combinations, which you also can have with wine or beer or whiskey or whatever, but they're cold drinks. So it's totally different. And then you feel them melting together and your digestion is being stimulated. So it's very light on your digestion. So yeah, tea, what else? It's beautiful. Now, for today, I brought you 2 cheeses and 2 teas. And some of you might have had the occasion of getting the cheeses as well. In the Netherlands, we sold them in a beautiful tin with the teas together. And the first cheese I'm going to talk about is the cheddar from England. The cheddar from England, this is a real raw milk cloth-bound cheddar, which means it's farmstead, made by the Westcombe company. And cheddar derives its name from the process how it's being made. Now, the difference between any other cheese, if you want the whey to get out of the curd, you have to press it. In the cheddaring process, they pile blocks of curd on each other, and in this way the upper blocks will press away from the blocks underneath, and they change that regularly all day, so the blocks underneath come up again, and this way, this process is called cheddaring and makes it look like a really marble cheese. So the structure changes, which makes it also light to digest. By the way, it's a cheese which is promoted by several diets. And cloth bound means afterwards, when it's been really pressed in the press, they put cloth around the cheese. And the cloth is the protection, and then the maturing starts. Now, the maturing of this cheddar is 1.5 years, and that's really irregular for a very good farmstead cheddar. Cheddar itself, the flavors can be very robust, a little bit of hay notes, but also very high in acidity compared to other cheeses. And if you have the cheese on itself, actually, I want you to pair it in 2 ways. So first, I would like you to cut off a little piece and taste cheese, what it's like. So the robust flavors, almost licorice-like, I want you to have that on your palate. And then, if I'm correct, you made yourself a beautiful cup of tea, which is called Brilliant Breakfast. Now, if you made yourself a real cup of tea, I would like you to pour that cup in a wine glass. Why a wine glass? Suppose you're in a restaurant and you're having cheese as a dessert, and they bring you a cup of tea. It reminds you that the bill is coming too, because it's tea or coffee afterwards, and your whole sensation of a real cheese platter is gone. Now they bring you a beautiful wine glass with a warm steaming tea. And this is very exciting. Every time we do this in our cheese bar here, people are stunned by the way it looks, and it's no longer, you're no longer an exception with all the people who drink wine. So it's really important to have that feeling. But then again, the flavors and the fragrances which come out when you have it in a wine glass are amazing. So now the real pairing starts. What you do is you have a sip of the tea. And here it goes. All the flavors of the tea change your palate. It's a beautiful dark tea. Brilliant Breakfast says it all. It's like what the English would like for breakfast. And then you have a piece of the cheese, and you chew the cheese, and you have all those flavors in your mouth. And now you know why I wanted you to have a piece of cheddar before. Because the tea and the cheese, they start to melt together. All the flavors are changing. So the robust, earthy flavors from the cheddar are now going into a buttery, nutty notes, even a little bit of chestnut notes. And if you sip again a little bit of the tea to flush away the cheese and have it all together, you will have this warm feeling like you're in front of a fireplace on a rug with your loved one, and you're having this steaming tea and looking into the fire and eating this wonderful cheese. So this is the really feel-good, warm combination of a tea and a cheese pairing together. Of course, this is robust and strong. It's not an everyday combination. We here in the Netherlands, we have our own Gouda, and a farmhouse cheddar is really not that easy to get. You have to go to a specialty shop to get that. But the Goudas are available everywhere. So imagine you have a very good Gouda, like maybe a farmstead Gouda, which I have right here. What do you combine with a Gouda? Well, that can differ. If the Gouda is quite young, you can easily go for a green tea. If the Gouda gets older, your tea has to be more robust too. So if it's like middle-aged, like 10 months maybe, aged for 10 months, you can best go for a Darjeeling. But when it really gets old, like 2 years, even the brilliant breakfast would be great to pair with this cheese, sorry. Now for this tasting, and the tasting we also sold in the tins we made with the Dilmah together, I brewed a green tea with jasmine flowers because I have a Gouda, which is from a small isle in a lake in the Netherlands, from a farmer who has only 45 cows to milk and not a regular Dutch breed of cows. But he took his cows from France, from the Jura region, and they are called the Montbéliarde. And then he makes this organic raw milk cheese. His hands, he's the 5th generation making this cheese. His hands are doing this every day, like it's an everyday job and anyone can do it. And he thinks his cheese is no specialty. But to us, it represents everything farmstead cheese should represent. So you have the terroir where the cows are grazing. You have the quality of the milk from the cows bringing the milk to the farmer. And you have those beautiful hands of Jan, and nowadays his son Joost making this gorgeous cheese, and then afterwards maturing on wooden shells in a natural environment for 15 months. And then you have the cheese on itself. It's gorgeous. It has those beautiful crystals, and those crystals falsely named salt crystals, which are never salt crystals, but are the amino acids turning into crystals. If you just could get out one of those crystals and bite on them, you'll have umami, which is like the 5th flavor, the Japanese flavor, as they say it, which is like an extraction of everything together. Now, if you taste the Wilde Weide again before you have the tea, you will notice that it's quite floral, it's quite herbal, and it's also very fruity cheese. Then we have a sip of this beautiful green tea with jasmine flowers. You know, I guess with the School of Tea, I don't have to tell you that you make this tea with a water temperature of 80 degrees Celsius and not higher, so you have no bitters. I did it all the way that Dilmah would like me to use spa in my special water cooker, and sometimes we use filtered water as well. Anyway, I have the tea and it's very cleaning. It's astringent in your mouth, but not too. There are no bitters, and it's very floral. You really taste the jasmine really proper. Then you have a bite of this gorgeous cheese, which is, oops, sorry, by the way, my favorite cheese in the Netherlands. And then you'll see that it really melts together as a beautiful marriage, but not the warm and autumn-like feeling you had with the cheddar. But this is like spring flavors. This is like the jasmine is being boosted, but there's also a very fruity experience in this cheese. Even if we look at the fruitiness, it's apricot, which brings it immediately comes to my mind. And if you look at the herbal notes, for me, it's like cream and dill, like a sauce you have with your menu, and which is also very spring-like, very green. And if we look at the after flavor, when you have a sip of the tea again, the honey notes will come out and bring some sweetness to the whole experience. So this is quite the opposite of the robust cheese we had before. And now we're getting to this field, this meadow of flowers, and spring is in, and spring is in the Netherlands. We're having spring. The temperature is not that good. We're at 4-5 degrees Celsius, but spring is in the air, blue skies, and I'm imagining with this cheese that I'm walking in this meadow with all those flowers. And these are just two pairings which are totally different, but imagine you want more cheeses to go with the green tea with jasmine flowers. I suggest you can take any goat cheese, any fresh goat cheese will do. You can take cheeses with the wild bloomy rind, white bloomy rind, like a brie or a camembert, which also pair very well with the green tea with jasmine. So you can think easily, like if it's very floral, if it's very herbal, if it's very fresh and spring-like, take a very light tea. If it's robust, if it's dark, if it's strong, take a dark tea. Even the blue cheeses will go better with a dark tea than with a green tea. Now, the whole experience together of tea and cheese is stunning. And even my husband, who is a very, he likes his wine, let me say that. But if you ask him which combination with cheese is the best, he will always definitely say tea and cheese go very well together. And if you do this and you have a cheese platter and you have one or maybe even two teas, if you want to serve it right, and you do it in a wine glass, it just brings out an enormous surprisingly feeling after a dinner. So every top restaurant should have, in my opinion, should have the ability for people to take tea and cheese. And by the way, the whole world can enjoy it, whether you're pregnant, whether your religion says you can't have alcohol. Tea is the best solution to that. Are there any questions, Dilhan?
I think there will be, but I want to thank you for that because I think one of the beautiful things also about tea is in the way that it partners to, at the end of a meal, it just makes you feel good because when you walk away from a restaurant, whether you've had a fantastic cheese, as we all love, or whether you've had an incredible dessert, it, as you said, leaves interesting metaphor, leaves a clean room and leaves a clean palate. This is lovely. So thank you for that, Betty. And the nice thing is that now Betty looked at these two teas. We looked at a breakfast tea, and a breakfast tea typically from about 4,000 feet above sea level. It is a little bit of woodiness. It's got cedar notes. It's quite intense. And then she looked at our jasmine green tea, which has that soft sweetness of jasmine and that very sensual aroma. But there's lots in between, which means that with virtually any type of cheese, whether it is creamy or light, or whether it is smoky or different levels of intensity, there is a tea for that cheese that does a beautiful pairing. And there's the interesting stuff that you can also try. Now, this is up to you, where you can try contrasting pairings. Now, we looked a few weeks ago, Betty, at desserts, tea with desserts. And there again, just like cheese, was a match made in heaven. And the wonderful thing is that you can also choose a particular aspect and particular element of the cheese or the dessert or the salad that you want to highlight. So you can take the tea and target a specific taste attribute in whatever you're pairing with. And that's the beautiful part of tea. So we have a question. At what time of the day would you prefer, would you have tea and cheese? After dinner, in the afternoon, for breakfast, anytime? And it's a poll. So Betty, we are asking our guests what time. So, anytime is winning so far. That's good. You've done your job, Betty. Well done. You have inspired. Wow, incredible. So anytime wins, I think. Anytime wins, yes. And that's a poll. 50% say anytime, but most after dinner, some in the afternoon, and a few for breakfast. Please publish that, Gary. So we've got another poll. Sorry, I'm getting instructions from everywhere here. So which combination, while you're still online, Betty,
yeah,
which combination will you try first? We've got 3 combinations on there. Farmhouse cheddar with English breakfast tea, Gouda with green tea and jasmine. Sorry, 2 combinations, both or neither. So I guess both. I guess they're winning. Which combination would you like to try first? So I think the Gouda with green tea and jasmine, brilliant. Wonderful, beautifully explained. And I love the way, Betty, you talk so sincerely, passionately, and so authentically, if there is such a word, when you describe your cheeses and the combination with tea. So, School of Tea recommends. So, our space on the Dilmah online shop is live. So, come along and check School of Tea recommends. And we have a members only offer, so you can download Betty Koster's book, Cheese and Tea ebook from the Dilmah Tea Club on Facebook. Now, believe me, you only had a tiny, tiny sampling of what Betty has to say on the subject. One day, when we have our in-person schools of tea, there will be more. But for the moment, check out the Cheese and Tea ebook on the Dilmah Tea Club on Facebook. You can download it complimentary. Now, we've got a couple of interesting things coming up. So, Betty, you wouldn't believe it. We're going to be talking about or listening to Brews and Blues on World Jazz Day, and that's next week. We have Jerome Speldewind, incredible jazz musician, who is joining me on the School of Tea, and we are going to be celebrating tea and jazz. So, yep, it works on the oral sense as well. Tea works across all senses. And then that's on the 30th of April. So join us for that. 13th of May, we'll be celebrating our handcrafted journey with my father. And he's here because on the 6th of May, it's his birthday. Can you believe it? He's going to be 91. And that's an incredible age. I know. And he's evidence of all the goodness that there is in tea. And guess what, Betty? He's doing a social media takeover. He's taking over our Facebook page. We've said, for heaven's sake, don't delete it, whatever you do. So all our guests are going to be coming and joining us. He'll be doing his thing. You can ask him questions. And with that, I want to thank you very much, Betty. I want to thank you. I want to thank you to all our guests. Thank you, Thomas, Jane, Alvin. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. We've been live on Facebook and we are on Zoom. We'll be back next week. Thank you very much and have a wonderful morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you are. Stay warm, stay tea inspired. Bye-bye.